So I don't really do reading vlogs that much, so I don't know how this is gonna ultimately turn out, but let's find out together. Hey there, creepy peeps. My name is Nightmare Maven. Welcome to my channel. If you're new here, hi, I'm Vicky. I talk about horror movies and books, particularly today, all year round. So if you end up liking this video, maybe subscribe and become a creepy peep today. So I was watching a video recently from Harpies in the Trees, who I will link up here and in the description. Highly recommend subscribing to that channel, especially if you enjoy reading horror books, especially with a supernatural twist. But anyways, I was watching a video and Mers in her video did a reading vlog where she had like a couple of books she had been like putting off, and she read like the first 20 pages or so and then gave her reaction as to what she thought. I thought it was a fun video idea, and I have a fuck ton of books on my physical TBR that I have been putting off slash have grown maybe too intimidated to read based on some of the reviews I see on Book Talk. Right, so quickly I'll show you each book that I'm going to read and then try and give you a just quick summary based on my recollection as to what these books are about. Some of them have been on my TBR for a long time, so we'll see what I can remember. First one I'm gonna give a chance finally is Exquisite Corpse by Poppy Z. Bright. This one is definitely on like the disturbing book side of TikTok. If I remember correctly, it's supposed to be like two serial killers, I think, and they like team up. And I think they're low-key supposed to be like in love with each other because they're just like both so twisted. I'm not 100% sure. I know it involves two serial killers though. It's called Exquisite Corpse. Like, I don't know, I just feel like that title just screams that it's gonna be disturbing, so we'll see. Also on the disturbing book side of TikTok is The Troop by Nick Cutter. This one, if I remember right, is kind of like a Lord of the Flies situation. Oh, it's called The Troop. It's a Boy Scouts. Yeah, that makes sense. They get lost in the wilderness, I guess, and scary shit happens. I don't know if there's supposed to be something in the forest or they just kind of go crazy a la Lord of the Flies. I know there is a very disturbing scene somewhere in the pages of these books involving a turtle. I don't know the details on that, but I know a lot of people refer to it online when talking about this book. So this is one of the ones I'm kind of like intimidated to read. I think this and Exquisite Corpse, honestly, are the two that I'm like scared to read. I haven't read too many of the books that people talk about when they talk about like the most disturbing books they've ever read. So I'm kind of like intimidated by these. But next one, I don't know why I just have kept putting this one off because it feels like the perfect one for me to read. Fantasticland by Mike Bachoven. Probably said that wrong either way. The premise is that there is like a theme park in Florida and like a hurricane hits and there are people that got stranded in the park, and then something horrible happens. Like, it's supposed to be like an investigation and like interviews and pieces of evidence that kind of put together what happened. I don't know if it's gonna get disturbing. As much as this state sucks ass, I occasionally like a good bit of Florida horror, and I'm hoping it's good. This next book, I've accepted at this point that I don't think we're ever gonna see the movie, and the reason I kept putting off reading this is because we were supposed to be getting a movie, and that is Dark Harvest by Norman Partridge. Do you remember that this follows like a town where every year they have a competition and they're like hunting some like entity, I think. Gangs of teenage boys eagerly await their chance to confront the legendary nightmare, the October Boy. It feels like Sleepy Hollow meets the Hunger Games. And I could use some Halloween vibes right now, so yeah, I'm excited to dig into this one. I don't know how these last two are gonna go because they are a lot shorter, so I feel like reading 20 pages or so is gonna be a significant amount of story compared to these other more normal size books. And the last one is one that I've been putting off because I've heard mixed reviews about it. I don't look too deeply into the reviews because I don't want anything spoiled for me. I just have seen surface level reactions to it, but it is Nothing But Blackened Teeth by Cassandra Khaw. I think it's like a wedding party that takes place in a haunted house. But I've heard mixed reviews. Some people like really didn't like this book. I don't know the reasons why, again, because I don't want it spoiled for me, so I haven't looked too deeply into the reviews, but I'll be interested to finally read them and like delve into these reviews once I finish the book, I'm sure. If I end up finishing the book, or the first 20 pages could suck and I just won't finish it, who knows. That could potentially happen with any of these. I'm gonna start reading these and then I'll come back after every one and let you know my thoughts. I ended up just sitting and reading each one instead of stopping to film in between because I was just like so cozy. I got like all curled up. I didn't want to get up to stop and have to film every single time. I've been in a reading slump this month. I know it's like really early in the year to already be in a reading slump. So like sitting down and being all cozy and reading, it reignited. If nothing else, trying out this video idea, I think got me out of my reading slump. So that's a new tactic to use, I guess. So what I'm gonna do is go through each of these, I think in order from like least favorite to favorite. Mind you, I only read about 20 pages of each one. I guess I should have said more like from least likely to finish right away to most likely to finish right away. Surprisingly, the one that kind of, let's just say it hasn't grabbed me yet in the first 20 pages, Dark Harvest. Weirdly. The writing's a bit strange and I think that's why I'm not quite into it, I guess, yet. Where I left off, it looks like the hunt has kind of like just started. So where I finished in 22 pages, because there's no chapter, so I just went to like the nearest like break right here. My 17 bookmark. It's like the least Halloween, I just realized I flashed it on camera, is the least Halloween bookmark I could have used. So we get introduced to a character, Pete, who is like just having like the shittiest life in this little town. We get introduced to Pete and we get a little backstory on him. So we understand like why he so desperately wants to win and get out of this town. And then the last thing that happens right before I stopped reading is there's a man who goes out to the pumpkin patch and literally like carves the face of the October Boy, and it kind of like forms himself like this entity, which that was pretty cool. I don't know how to describe it. It's just the way the writing is a little bit weird. I think it'll just take me a little bit to get used to. I put on like a little Halloween playlist while I was starting this one and it definitely got me in the Halloween spirit. So we'll likely finish. It was just the one like got me excited the least, I guess. Next one on my list, moving up a little bit, which also kind of surprised me a little bit, Nothing But Blackened Teeth. The premise is actually, it's like there's this group of friends that like to go to like scary places or do kind of like horror tourism, if you will. And so they're at this haunted estate in Japan, I assume, as kind of like a celebration because two of the members of the group are getting married. I read to page 35. And just in that chapter alone, like I feel like the setup of trying to like get all of these characters introduced, and they're very obviously like tangled like history with each other was like a little wild. They've like dated each other and broken up, and so they all kind of have like histories a little bit, and they all kind of don't like each other. At least that's the impression I got in the first chapter. So I was a little bit like thrown off by that, and so far don't really have a likable character, which is just only a little bit concerning because this book is only like 123 pages. So I'm wondering like, I just am wondering how it's gonna go. I'm gonna keep reading it because I love the idea of this house. So while they're introducing the characters in this first chapter, we also get a little bit of like a backstory on this like huge estate that they're on. And this really scary premise of like a bride being buried alive. And then every year, apparently a girl is like sacrificed to the house essentially and buried alive in the house, or at least that's like the folklore that they establish. Obviously it's just the first chapter. I don't actually know if that's true or not, but that idea of there just being like bodies upon bodies in this like really beautiful old pristine like Japanese house is terrifying. So I'm gonna keep reading it for sure. Okay, I'm intentionally putting this one right in the middle of the list because weirdly reminded me of Stephen King's writing, and that's The Troop by Nick Cutter. I read through page 26. That got me to chapter 6. Right off the bat, the writing style just reminded me of Stephen King. Mostly introduced to the Scoutmaster Tim as he encounters this man who just looks extremely emaciated. We have a few chapters from that man's point of view, and we don't know what's going on with him yet, but he's just ravenously hungry, and all I can think about is just eating. I imagine he's probably gonna try and eat Scoutmaster Tim and the other Boy Scouts. Left off, we've met Scoutmaster Tim, kind of met the boys. There's like a group of 5 boys that are on this trip on an island. So I guess they take this annual trip to this island just to camp out and do wilderness Boy Scout stuff, I suppose. Where I left off, Tim has just met up with the man and is like freaked out but concerned, so he's gonna get the guy food. We'll see how that goes. I feel like it's not gonna work out well for Scoutmaster Tim. Or something about it that just reminded me of Stephen King. It could have been the page that was like 2/3 of the entire page was describing how the boys in the troop smelled. Literally like 2/3 of the page describing how each of them smell based on these very clear stereotypes that these boys are fitting. So we have like the jock type, the smart one, the kind of mysterious quiet boy, and then of course the fat nerdy boy. That also might be why it reminds me of Stephen King a little bit. I don't know if it's going to be that way the rest of the book, so maybe if you're thinking about reading this and you like Stephen King's books, I would pick this one up. It was like immediate when I started reading the book, so I feel like might have been a huge influence for this author. I don't know. This one was surprising at how into it I am already, for how graphic it is already, and that is Exquisite Corpse. Oh my god. I made it to page 34, which is the start of chapter 2. But the entirety of the first chapter that I read introduces us to Andrew Compton, who is a serial killer based in London, and he is escaping from prison by faking his own death, and that is the entirety of the first chapter. So the first chapter is really just kind of like his musings, I guess, a little bit on what he did to get put in prison, which is to kill young men and rape their corpses. Already a few moments, they're really quick, but it was graphic already within the first 30 or so pages. So that was, according to the back of this book, presumably he will go to New Orleans where he will meet up with this other killer who I have not been introduced to yet. I feel like immediately it's not pulling any punches. Obviously get back to you guys whenever I finish these, but if you like serial killer stuff, I feel like you'll probably enjoy this. And that means the one that I enjoyed the most so far in my reading and I'm the most excited about finishing is Fantasticland. I love the way it's set up. I will say immediately, I almost skipped the author's note because I genuinely thought it was actually an author's note. And I've read a few in my day that were kind of spoilery, like introductions and author's notes. So I was about to skip it until I was flipping through to find the end of it, and I noticed that the author's signature at the end is not the author of the book. So the whole book is actually like a book. So the whole premise is that you're reading this book that this other author, this fake author, Adam Jakes, has put together to talk about what happened. Read to page 23. all I kind of got so far was like an easing in to the situation, that there was this Category 5 hurricane that hit, and we get a little bit of backstory on the way Fantasticland is set up, and the very odd disaster preparedness, which has not been updated, but left the workers of Fantasticland with plenty of food and water to help them. And the last chapter I read is from a character who worked for the American Red Cross. So she was talking about how they kept putting Fantasticland lower and lower on the priority list because they knew that they had food and water and provisions to get them through. So they were helping people that were in more dire situations. So it's kind of setting us up for like how long these people went without help, and I guess kind of setting us up for whatever happened there, which it seems actually kind of seems like a Lord of the Flies situation. They make a point to mention like the layout of the theme park that has like these different parks, and they were all meant to feel different even though you were in one big theme park. So I'm thinking it's gonna form this kind of like tribe mentality, and they're gonna be like killing each other for resources and things like that while they're waiting for help. So I really can't wait to finish this one. I did have a credit for an audiobook with Libro, so I went ahead and just got the audiobook for this one, and it has it's got to be at least 2 or 3 different narrators that I heard, or the woman narrator is fucking amazing at changing her voice. I'm not saying it's a full cast. I don't think it's going to be a different person for every interview, but it really, really immersed me the fact that I heard like 2 different voices for these 2 different interviews. So I'm gonna keep listening to the audiobook for this one in particular. Would recommend it, like just immediately. I was like, so good. Love when there's multiple narrators, really immersive. Overall, really good. I think I did well. There wasn't a single one where I was like, this fucking sucks and I'm not gonna finish it. So I think that did well. And bonus got me out of my reading slump a little bit, which is really good, because the only thing I've read in February so far is White Horse, and that's it. So yeah, certified reading slump this month, and this helped. Let me know what you've been reading lately. Let me know your tips for getting out of a reading slump also. It'll help me and maybe anybody else in the comments who's maybe in a reading slump right now. If you liked this video, give it a thumbs up. I do hope you enjoyed it. Once again, don't forget to check out Harpies in the Trees. That's who I got this video idea from. I will see you very soon on this channel though with a new video. Until then, stay strange. Bye.